Hey, it's Drybear. We finally have the May update release notes, the patch notes, and we are on the eve of the patch coming out tomorrow. So today I'd like to go through the final version of the patch notes. We've had a lot of expectations for this patch, but we'll see what's actually in the final notes. So let's go. But first, if you have any questions or comments for me, you'll find me live every day on twitch.tv/Drybear. Who knows? I might even be streaming right now. Let's get into it. Destined for Destruction release notes. This is a play on words, obviously, because we're getting the Destroyer class as pictured by this image here. The downtime is expected to be 4 hours and will start at 12 a.m. Pacific. So it's actually, you know, for how much content is this patch, a 4-hour downtime is kind of shocking, to be honest. I expected a lot longer, and I wonder if there's going to be any critical issues or, you know, unexpected downtime or hot fixes. We'll see. But it's got a lot of stuff in it. So let's get into it. Valtan Legion raid. We knew this was coming. You can do normal at level 1415. You can do hard at 1445. We finally start getting relic gear sets, and there's a lot of sets in this patch that will, you know, kind of expand how you play your classes and how you play your character. A lot of good stuff in this. I put out Valtan Legion guides on how to play the phases, so be sure to check those out on my channel. We're getting the Destroyer Advanced class. I did a guide on this as well. And this one is another warrior with a lot of bam bam and boom boom. And he's got a big hammer and he's really cool. So I won't belabor that too much. We're also getting the Descaluda Guardian raid. I did a guide on this one as well, so you'll find that on my channel. So this is 1415. This is the next Guardian after Velganos. Thank God Velganos is kind of a pain. He's not that efficient to farm, and you kind of have to solo or duo him, so it's nice to have one. Descaluda does drop relic accessories, so super good farm opportunities with this one, and he's very easy relative to other Guardians. He doesn't change platforms all that much. You can keep him in one place, you can spam damage him and nuke him down. He's a very casual and kind of relaxing Guardian to kill on a regular basis, so that's really cool. We're getting Challenge Guardians, which is a weekly event. You go to the second board next to your Guardian raids, and these are weekly per roster. So you'll get 3 different Guardians. It'll place you in a group at eye level. So whatever Guardian you get, you'll be at eye level. So you can't outgear them, which is what Scale of Harmony means. And then you'll get roster bound rewards that you can trade between your characters. And you only do it once per entry. So there's 3 different Guardians. You can do that once per roster per week. So you just do it once and then you're good for the week and you get the loot, and the loot can be traded between your characters, which is super nice. We're getting Island Siege, PvP, and raid matches for guilds. So we finally have guild activities. Not everyone's going to be super into this, but I know some people will be huge fans of guild activity, PvE and PvP, which is really cool. So let me know what you enjoy about this. If you're someone that likes guild activities, I would love to know down in the comments. 3 new Chaos Dungeons. This is huge. So now at 1415, 1445, and 1475, we're getting the 3 confirmed Chaos Dungeons. Note that 1415 does not yet drop the relic accessories, but 1445 and 1475 will. So if you have a 1445 character, it's a slog. It's hard to get there, but if you get there, you'll be making a lot more gold than the rest of the player base, just because you'll be able to get regular relic accessories from your Chaos Dungeons on top of your Guardian raids, which is cool. We got a ghost ship, so this will be your weekly, so now we don't have to do the 1370 anymore. We can do the 1415, which gives us better rewards. We will also have the new secret dungeons and the new Chaos Gate at 1415. So we're getting 1400 content that you can do regularly per week, so you don't have to downscale yourself. We're also getting the hard mode for Chaos Line. This is a South Vern weekly dungeon that you can do per roster that gives you some nice rewards at a vendor. So you can get this. The entry item, the entry token is the same as normal mode, but the currency that you get is different, and it's a different tab on the vendor as well. And we finally have a higher level field boss, Thunderwings, 1460. We'll get more juiciness from him as well. Wild Wings Island is a new activity, open world activity that you can do. We weren't really sure exactly what rewards we're going to get, but it does look like the rewards are going to be rapport chests, the honing books, depending on how high those go, honing materials, Fions, card pack silver, and more. So it's generally good stuff. I'm happy to see Fion's here. We definitely need more events of this coming in, and maybe this becomes our event added in. Maybe this is something that we're just going to do for regular, but this is a good selection of items you'll get. It is a co-op quest. You can go to the island and do the event. It's appearing west of Tortoik, so it's on the eastern side of the hemisphere, and it's an event every hour. So it's an event island, and it's going to be a good thing to do regularly just to make sure that you're getting these sweet rewards. Naria's wardrobe is being added. We didn't actually get in the patch notes any new indications. The same image they used before, so we're not exactly sure what's going to be in the collection. This is a limited time skin shop, so this one will only be open in other regions. They only had it up for like a month, and then it went away forever, or they had like a different version of it. And this is essentially real life or slice of life clothing options for your characters if you want something a little more realistic. You can find this in the dressing room area inside the game, and I think each one of these will be piecemeal. I think most of them are dyeable as well, so if you're looking for something kind of fun and hip that you want to style your character with, you can do that with Naria's wardrobe. New cosmetics. I'm very happy to see a bunch of skins coming into this patch. I was hoping that they wouldn't hold out on us, and it looks like they are not. So the first one they're going to be adding into the game is Shushire's Will Destroyer. So this is kind of like a recolor of Shushire's Will. This has existed in many different forms of many different colors. This one's kind of like a brass with like a light deep blue kind of with a sheen on it. And it does have the horns plus the typical destroyer weapon, and this is for destroyers only. So you'll, just like the one we got for Glavier, this one only is accessible to destroyers and only equipable by destroyers. But the cool part is the next thing, the Dawn Collection armor skins. So one of my favorites here is this Scrapper skin. I personally think this is the best Scrapper skin in the entire game. There's two of these in other regions. There's a white one and there's this golden one. And I'm super happy. I've been waiting for this one for a long time. There's two warrior skins in here. As you can see, this one I believe is Gunlancer. This one's Berserker here. And then this is like a Bard skin. And this is like an Artillerist skin as well. This one also has a gold and silver variant. I think most of these have variants in other regions. So we'll have to see for the patch tomorrow what we ultimately end up with. But yeah, it's super cool to see these. I'm very excited about the Scrapper one personally. The Berserker one I think is really cool, and I'm sure a lot of bards are going to be happy about this one. This is a recolor of a tier set item, but it is a nice recolor and stands out. And of course, they do come with weapons. So this is the gauntlet for the Scrapper. This is the hammer that comes with the Destroyer skin. This is the harp for the Bard skin. This is the sword for the Berserker, the gun lance, and then the Artillerist weapon as well. So this is the Dawn collection. There are variants of these. I'm hoping that we get all the different color variations, but overall it's nice to see new skins coming into the game. Stronghold structures and customization. We're getting a whole bunch of new stuff, social activities, things you can add to your strongholds for social things. Includes tents, romantic camping set, sweet picnic set. So you can just have little hangouts in your stronghold, which is nice. General store updates. It's kind of short, but it's pretty big. They're going to be doing, obviously the Destroyer package has been added. There's also going to be some updates to the Mari's Secret Shop, which is going to be quantity-wise. So maybe they're going to add it so some of the items you buy in Mari's Secret Shop just give you more, which is nice. And there's new crystal bundles, which is also really cool. And then they're going to add a button to preview skins from selection chests in your inventory. Previously, you had to go look at it in the store, and if you looked at the chest in your inventory, you couldn't preview it, which never made any sense. So it's nice to get this feature added in. General updates and quality of life. We love quality of life. We love that. 5 new hairstyles for each of the 5 class categories: Assassin, Warrior, Mage, Martial Artist, and Gunner, which is amazing. There's also 5 new Warrior pre-made looks and 5 facial presets without facial hair. So some that are just shaved warriors. Also a huge one, this is something that's been requested a lot, added human ears for the Mage class. All of the mages currently have to have some kind of mythological or fantastical ears with fins or butterfly wings. But now if you want to, you can have a human ear for the mage. And there's a scroll bar for the hairstyle selection, as it looks like we'll be going into a different, long enough to be on a new page. So this is really cool. If you have a personalization ticket, a reskin ticket for your characters left over from all the events that they gave. You can use this to get the new hairstyles on your character, so check these out in game. New quality of life menus, options, and settings. Added an integrated dungeon menu that lists all the dungeons and raids available to a player, so you can then just look at the stuff that you can queue for. So it's not like, you know, you can trim the list down, which is nice. And you can also access this by going to the integrated dungeon UI element under the mini map, or by doing Alt Q, which is super nice. You can now check whether or not you've participated in various content by going to the game menu. I think this confirms that we're not getting the unified end game screen, but instead you'll be able to track your daily and weekly completion in one place on the exit screen for while you're in game per character, which is pretty cool. You can now set chat macros to be displayed upon using a skill. This is useful for sight focus and for RP if you really just want to be fancy. You can add a favorite mount setting to swap your favorite mounts, and they added in the loot options, auto dismantling, and loot alerts. This is super cool. It means we can now start auto dismantling by stat, which is probably the best thing about all of these features. So if you say that, you know, I don't auto dismantle anything that has expertise, domination, etc. That way you never have to look at it. And then you can also specify engravings as well. The way this works in other regions is you favorite an engraving, and then in the auto dismantle, you say anything that's not favorited, just auto dismantle it. So you can say anything with like expertise and, you know, fortitude, get rid of it. So that's gonna be pretty awesome, and it's gonna save you a lot of time when you're looting stuff during your dailies. Integrated presets are being improved. There's not really a crazy use for these right now. These generally get used for equalized content like hell modes and things like that, where you have to have a specific build. And maybe for challenge guardian raids you'll use it, but it's nice to get these features in here. So if you want to have a specific preset with a specific pet and specific tripods and all that stuff, you can save a preset and swap your whole build all at once, which is super nice. You can now specify which characters gain gold. That means that if you're doing, like, say you have your core 6 roster of characters that do the hardest content, but you obviously want to do the weekly content on other characters just to get drops that allow you to buy armor sets and things like that. You just don't want to consume your weekly gold. You can now specify which 6 characters can get gold and which ones can't. They updated the party finder and party invite menu. Offline players will not be shown in the party invite UI. So if they, if they queue up and then they go offline, they won't be there anymore, which is really cool. If you try to enter different content while you're in a Find Party lobby that hasn't launched yet, it'll warn you of that. So, you know, if you're in a Find Party trying to fill up for, say, Valtan, and then you accidentally queue up for something else, or someone invites you something, it'll warn you before that goes. That way you know that you're about to drop party, which before no one really knew, at least in the West, what drops you from the Find Party lobby. So you may accidentally dodge without realizing it and then lose a group that you were trying to get into. Legion Raid Find Party will have a drop down for which gate or which phase you want to queue for. This is an improvement over the Abyss raids, because the Abyss raids have to be done all at once. The Legion raids, you can queue up for gate 1 or gate 2, whichever gate you want to do. You don't have to worry about that. Auction house improvements, pretty cool. You can now search more specifically from the advanced search options menu in the auction house. And while you're doing advanced search options, you can reset search presets by deleting them. So we'll have a little X next to it, so you can cancel out a stat, which is really nice, without it completely wiping your search and you having to start over. But also making it so that if an item, currently right now in the West, if you put an item up, you have to wait for it to expire or pay a fee in order to bring it back down off the auction house. This feature will change it so that if it has less than 3 hours left and more than 5 minutes, they do this so that people that are waiting to have a bid war, can still bid on it. But if it has less than 3 hours but hasn't started the last minute bid war yet, you can just relist it straight from the auction house, which is nice. You don't have to worry about, getting it in your mail, putting it in your inventory, then putting it back on the auction house. The way it'll work is you will pay the deposit again, and then your old deposit will be returned to you via mail. So you just pay the deposit, put it back on the auction house, and then right from there. It's just a nice quality of life change. And you can see your fee on count directly from the auction house UI. Not a huge deal, but pretty nice. You know exactly how much you have if you don't have it listed at the top left of the screen. Stronghold is getting farm improvements. You can now plant and grow crops. You can grow gatherables on the slots, which is pretty cool. You get your own little farming section. You can now also harvest splendid gatherables, which will give you more rewards overall if you have the research level. You can now send more than one dispatch on the same special mission. which is like the alt progression missions that you can do, and they're great for leveling up your stronghold. You can now send more than one dispatch on the same one, which is pretty cool. And they're doing some general cleanups, like you can now select and edit more than one structure at the same time, yada yada. General updates: we're getting a new daily login rewards. Make sure you claim everything before the patch resets, including your Aura of Resonance potions. And this one is huge. I'm so glad to see this finally coming to us, and earlier than I expected. They have it in Korea, but we didn't have it for the longest time. And this one is a single line, but it's super important. It means that you now have no restriction on having duplicate items equipped. And what this means is that, for the example that they listed here, if you have space rings, if you're, you have to find like Fallen Destruction or space rings and time rings with different names, because you're going to have duplicates currently. This is going away. So if you find 2 space rings that have the right stats for you, you can have duplicates of the same accessory, which is awesome, and it makes the whole process of getting your build right so much easier. Added front and back indicators when fighting a boss, which is really cool. Now you can see where the back attack starts, where front attack starts and ends, and it's so much easier. And you can also adjust the shape and color of these indicators in the settings if you go to controls and display. They've added shortcuts on Frosthaven and Foggy Ridge. Frosthaven is right next to the spawn. If you go forward in the spawn and turn right, you can slide down a ramp that goes to the far rightmost platform. And on Foggy Ridge, they added a jump like wind gust that takes you from the top left edge to the top right edge without having to go through all of those jump spots, which means that if they change platforms, it's easier to get to the top line, which makes these 2 maps a little bit more manageable overall. Raid leaders' chat messages will now be highlighted. Pretty useful. We have this in other regions, but it gives you like a raid warning when the raid leader is talking, so pretty cool. When you have your map open, you can still use the search bar to search for things. This will now work on multiple floors. So if you're looking for a vendor that's on the map you're on, but it's on a different floor, it will still search for it now. This, I was expecting to come with this update, but it's confirmed here. So how it works in the regions is if you're 14-15, you no longer get gold from any of the Orha's Well Abyss dungeons. They didn't include this right away because we didn't have anything else to do. We had Argos and our Aura as well. So if you couldn't do that, it would just get kind of weird. But now that we're getting Valtan, new sources of gold, they're adding in this restriction. So both normal and hard, if you get to 14-15, your only options for gold are Argos and Valtan. So you got to be doing those raids. There won't be an abyssal dungeon that you can do on that character. Bunch of cleanups to Monty Island. Neat. You will no longer use an alcohol buff. Neat. Nia Village alcohol being improved. Neat. And this one's kind of a bummer. I was hoping that we weren't going to get this in the Western version, but we are. So a quality upgrade NPC has been added to all major cities, allowing players a chance to upgrade the quality of relic gear obtained from Legion raids for gold. So a quick synopsis on this. All of your items have a quality measure from 0 to 100. It can actually be 0, and that will scale the stats that item has. This is accessories, armor, weapons, everything. So once you get a relic piece of gear, rather than trying to constantly rebuy the relic gear, if you want to improve the quality to get better stats on it, you can go to an NPC and RNG roll that chance. It's super painful in other regions. I don't know if there's going to be more fair in the Western region, but this will be available. So say you get the perfect relic gear set, you're all set to go on Valtan, but when you requisitioned the item from the Abyss vendor, from the Legion vendor, it rolled like a quality of 1. You can then go to the NPC to roll that quality up to as high as you can possibly get it to get more stats from it. Excavating Sniffer Dog, reduced cooldown. Neat. If expanded, the minimap will now close automatically during mini games. Also neat. Added the ability for players to autopath to a specific location. So this is just like autopathing when you're on the open seas with your boat, except you can do it now when you're in player mode anywhere on any map. So that's super cool. You can auto-path to spots if you want to be lazy. As we mentioned above, you can now preview skins from the selection chest without having to see it in the store, which is super nice. This is a cool one. Vendor items with purchase limits will now be moved to the bottom of the store UI if the available quantity has been exhausted. So if you go to Anguish Isle, event vendors, whatever it is, if you've exhausted the max that you can buy from that, it will sort that item down to the bottom of the list. So you don't have to look at it, so that when you're going to these vendors you can just see what you have left to buy, and everything else is sorted down, which is cool. General balance. I have covered this in another video when this was first introduced in Korea, but I'll do a general, quick run through of all the changes here at a very high level so everyone knows what's going on. It looks like we did get, as far as I can tell, all of the balance changes that were implemented in Korea, which is awesome. There's some really cool things in this. So let's jump into it. When in PvP, all damage reduction is reduced by 35%. So that means paladins, gun lancers, bards, war dancers, and sulfists, which had the damage reduction on them, this is reduced so that, they're less required, and this can open up your team comps in PvP a little bit more. We got a nerf to conviction and judgment. Math. This combo is now less strong than it was before. It's still very good, but I think they tried to breakpoint it so less classes need to get it. And we're actually seeing new builds in Korea where classes that used to use conviction and judgment are experimenting in not using it. So that's pretty cool. Mayhem had some of its nerfs reduced, but it still is getting nerfed. For Berserker, outgoing damage during burst mode is reduced. Healing effects received is reduced. And if your HP is maxed, you cannot use potions, so you don't accidentally use them. This was an issue that existed pretty much everywhere, but now that's gone. And Berserker Technique was buffed. Crit damage increased, and while bursting, crit damage is now up to 70% at max rank. So we're trying to equalize these engravings. Some nerfs to Berserker skills. Some of these are changing to back attack so that you can just use them for damage. Get the extra crit and damage from the back, because you're going to be there most of the time anyway. Adding in more synergy option that is less about you and more about giving synergy to your team. You can now do your little roll out of Hellblade, which is pretty cool. And Mountain Crash has been added as another counter options. Overall, a nerf, not as bad as it was. They did come down a little bit from where it was, but you're getting some synergy. You're getting a new counter. Yeah, that's Berserker. Gun Lancer, they buffed red a good bit, 3.3% on Surge Cannon, plus the Tripod, which increases the damage. And then they're making overall just red a little bit stronger. And they added weak point to Shield Bash because in blue, there wasn't enough weak points since a lot of your weak point came from red abilities. So a nice little change there. And really to incentivize people to play red for damage and blue for balanced a build. And really the issue was, at least in Korea, that blue was doing as much or more damage than red and was much tankier, which didn't really make sense for the build. Punish skills damage increased for Paladin. This is your sword abilities. So you get a little more damage increase there. And then your abilities that were a head attack because you are a warrior got switched to back attack. So you can at least use this. You don't really want to be running in front of the boss as the Paladin all the time just to deal damage. And then Sacred Executioner's duration has increased by 100, 125, 150% for the Judgment engraving. So a nice overall damage increase for sword-like things for Paladin. War Dancer esoteric skill damage calculated by spec or specialization has been increased a good bit, just to incentivize a little bit more spec balance rather than just scaling full swiftness. And then we're also getting a first intention buff as it wasn't really competing as well with the esoteric skill enhancement ability. Wind's Whisper is losing its crit rate and gaining MP recovery. And this was really just a target for First Intention, as First Intention had a big problem with mana since all of their abilities are non-esoteric. They use mana, so this is going to help them with their mana problem. Sky Shattering Blow, Easter Expired Impact changed from front attack to back attack just to get that extra crit buff. And then they got an 18% damage increase overall and a 14% damage increase for their Awakening and Esoteric skills. So overall, a nice little buff for War Dancer. Scrapper, 24% damage overall, super cool. And they got some extra scalings on some of their abilities. They're losing the need to use their yellow abilities for damage amp for buffing, and then getting just some nice damage on it. And Fierce Tiger Strike looks like, I haven't tested this in Korea, but it looks like it could be used for a good chunk of damage with this new tripod change that they have here. It could be a nice nuke skill. And then your big punch ability, they I don't know why they didn't list this out fully, but they made it so that it's a little more forgiving at close range. If anyone who doesn't know, the second awakening for the Scrapper, the closer you are, the more damage it deals. And at the minimum right now in West, it was like 0 to 2 meters. They just gave it an extra meter so that you can be within an extra step of the boss and still deal full damage with the ultimate. And then they also gave a nice little stamina skill damage increase for ultimate taijutsu. So a nice buff, a very nice buff for Scrapper overall. Sulfist saw a 7% damage increase. This was higher all of these changes were much different, and they came back on it quite a lot. They also made it so that when you know, in either form, either robust spirit or energy overflow, you can exit hype by pressing X. If you're you know, if you're just in it and you press Z and you move through your hype, you can end it anytime you want to start that cooldown early. If there's a boss transition that goes immune or things like that, you can just end it, which is super nice. They added back attack as they did with others. Some things that were head attack, that you use them for damage now with back attack. They gave base range to Merciless Pummel, which was pitifully short. Little T-Rex arms, not as bad as War Dancer, but it was one of your highest damaging abilities, and it was very short and hard to hit. They buffed up Energy Blast because no one used it, and then they buffed up a Tripod for Energy Bullet because no one used it. But overall, a buff plus a nice quality of life for Soulfist. Same front attack to back attack for the Glavier. Some nice things in here. The biggest one is going to be Spiraling Spear is now counterable. So now you have a counter in red and you have a counter in blue stance. So you don't have to swap stances to counter if you see the boss doing it. The Ground Explosion Tripod for Starfall Pounce has been buffed just because everyone used the other one. I think this one's super cool. It does make the animation when you land a lot longer, but it is a fun one. And I'm glad to see this damage going up. Four-Headed Dragon got buffed. I'm probably going to be switching my Glavier to an all-out attack build with this Four-Headed Dragon change. It seems pretty fun. I'm going to try it out. Thrust of Destruction had damage increased, and there's actually some testing right now in Korea that's showing that Thrust of Destruction might be one of your best, like, you know, almost competes with Red Dragon's Horn for damage out. So that's super cool. And some tripod changes for Red Dragon's Horn. Striker got basically nothing. 2 front attack abilities that are switching to back attack. And there you go. That's Striker. Woohoo. Deadeye got far less than I think everyone was hoping. I think that we were hoping for bigger changes for this, but this is some nice stuff in here. Some abilities for Deadeye will now push you back less, which can make the flow of your kit a little bit easier. Clay Bombardment is now just a big circle instead of a donut, which is I'm surprised it lasted as long as it did. There was a dead zone in the middle of the ability so that you could miss if you were too close to the target. Now it's just a big boom boom. So maybe people use Clay Bombardment a lot more now because it'll be reliable. And then Pistolier got a nice little damage buff. Artillerist got a lot of really cool things, and I'm super excited to play my Artillerist after these changes. They're removing the back attack from Gatling Gun, Flamethrower, and Gravity Explosion. This just means that it will benefit from engravings like Hitmaster. Hitmaster only works if it doesn't have a back attack or front attack on it. So now things like Flamethrower specifically for PvE and Gatling Gun for PvP will be able to, you know, just be a little bit more reliable. Plus, we're getting a 5% damage buff. Super cool. They're dropping the stagger on Homing Barrage and Air Raid because they're slower and harder to plan out for stagger checks and for retaliations. And then they're increasing the stagger for multiple rocket launcher, napalm shot, and swing. So you can have on-demand stagger for stagger checks. And then also, if you needed this delay here, you can actually prevent yourself from using it for stagger, messing up, hitting retaliation, killing your team, and things like that. And now we have another counter with Forward Barrage. Super snappy, very short range, but a much easier counter attack to use than Napalm Shot, which has a longer windup on it. The Heavy Turret Awakening got its HP increased by 4x. Super cool. It did die in some encounters if you left it in the wrong spot. And then some awesome stuff for your identity. If you're in barrage mode, you can dodge out of barrage mode now. So if you're in the wrong spot and you're about to get hit by a one-shot mechanic, you can just roll out of it without having to cancel it first. Super nice. You can also cancel it if you're silenced. And you can now use time stop potions when you're in barrage mode, as well as stealth and splendid stealth robes, which means that it just gives you more options to not get punished for going into turret mode. And then an extra meter will be added when you have firepower meter level 3. Makes it easier to see. And then some buffs for bombardment. All of this really means that they just wanted people to run the barrage build more. I run barrage on my artillerist, but people were running the firepower man with nukes a little bit too much. So they wanted to equalize it. Howitzer shot, which is your Q inside of your barrage mode, has been dropped by 3 seconds. So a 25% reduction in cooldown. And then focus fire, which is the channel, got its range increased by 50%, which is huge. Attack speed increase and attack speed duration reduced. So this is going to be a lot more reasonable to use, and it means that your barrage build, if you get the right opportunity, can now use focus fire more reasonably to get damage out, which is cool. Sharpshooter has exciting changes. I'm super excited to play my Death Rush Sharpshooter for this. We're getting a front attack removed from Stalker, which means, of course, you can scale off Hitmaster, which Sharpshooters do run in most builds. Another huge problem for Sharpshooters is their weak point and their stagger overall is very low compared to other classes. So Atomic Arrow, which is one of their team synergies, their damage amps, gets a weak point 1 on it, and Charge Shot gets from weak point 1 to weak point 2. I will still never understand why there's no crazy high stagger and weak point on Snipe, but it is what it is. Sharpshooter is getting a tripod change, and Blade Storm now has a tripod change, tooltip change to add Hawk meter recovery time every time you use a skill after applying the Shadow Dance tripod. A nice buff to the Death Strike engraving, and then the Hawk meter is going from having Loyal Companion Hawk meter recovery and is now getting attack power while your Silverhawk is summoned. And then to counteract that, you get a flat Hawk meter recovery by 30%. And additionally, this is one of my favorite changes on Fenrir's Messenger, the ultimate that doesn't get used that much currently. When you fire it, if you charge it the whole way, it will instantly fill your Hawk meter, and specialization no longer changes the Hawk meter's recovery on the ultimate. So you now have a way to instantly fill your meter. Your meter will fill faster, and Loyal Companion, which won't need this anymore, is now going to get a little bit of buff. So overall, a lot of buffs to Shadow or Sharpshooter, and I like this a lot because one of my, I love playing Death Strike on my Sharpshooter, but the reason I shy away from it sometimes is that when you start the fight, you have no meter. There's not an easy way to build meter, and it takes a while. And that part just always felt really bad, but now that's gone. Gunslinger had some less used abilities, getting some ups as well. Front attack to back attack on Peacekeeper. Catastrophe, PV damage increased by 22%. Almost no one ran this ability. Bullet Rain, PV damage increased by 23%, and PvP down. This was used a lot in PvP. I think people still ran it in PvE, just didn't really use it on rotation, so maybe this changes that, especially for Western players. And then some tripod changes, which are pretty nice. And then a crit rate buff for Time to Hunt, as it was the less popular engraving, so that's nice. Bard got a counter on Prelude of Storm, which is huge. It means you don't have to change your raid kit in case you need an extra counter. It also means Bards can run double counters, especially for Valtan. There are times where supports have to step up and do multiple counters for that. So that's gonna be really cool. Buff duration's increased by 1 second, so it's a little bit easier to line those windows up. So overall, great changes for Bard. This is gonna feel so good. Sorceress get Ice Shower as a counter now, which is pretty cool. And they did go ahead with the nerfs on Magic Enhancement and the Arcane Torrent, but this is far less than it was initially. So this one got walked back a little bit, but it is a little bit of a nerf for Sorceress. Ultimately, it doesn't really make that much of a difference in parsing. So Sorceress mains don't feel like you just got attacked here. It's super nice to have another counter in that kit, so overall you should be good to go. Deathblade got a front to back on Earthcleaver, and the biggest change is they did nerf Surge. So I think in the parsing right now, Surge and Remaining Energy are a lot closer together in damage output. Rather than just going through the actual numbers here, the biggest thing is that you will now need a full stack of 20 to get the full benefit. So previously, on Surge Deathblades, they were getting 14 stacks because it was efficient to just go to 14, exit, re-enter, and keep doing that. Now you're required to get a full 20 if you want the damage boost. So it does make some encounters harder for Surge. The damage overall is a little bit less, and it is harder to play, but Surge is not dead. I see people saying this has been over nerfed or whatever. I think Surge is fine. It just means you have to change your playstyle and adapt a little bit, and just plan for stacking more. And just play through that. But I think this build is still very, very viable. And lastly, Shadowhunter got some awesome changes. One of the best changes on this list. Shadowhunter had a long, moderate to long cooldown movement ability that went about 2 inches. So now it goes 2.5 inches, which is pretty cool. But movement ability got improved. Slasher now has a counter on it, which is really nice. Grind Chain has a team synergy, a damage amp on it, which is a lot more easy to use than your Roar. Sometimes your Roar has a long cooldown. You use it for meter gain, so you don't really want to be holding on to it for damage windows for your team. So having an option for Grind Chain is going to make that a lot easier. Demonic Slash got improved, more movement distance on this. Generally, Shadowhunters, especially the Perfect Suppression Shadowhunters, had trouble moving around. They just didn't have a lot of movement, and they didn't have a lot of distance on their movement. So you see a movement distance increased here, a movement distance increase there. Super cool. Howl got its cooldown reduced, and then its damage reduced to scale with it, so you're not just getting a buff out of that. Mana consumption is down because oftentimes Shadowhunters, especially Perfect Suppression, would run focus runes on Howl because they would run out of mana. So having this MP consumption down with the cooldown's nice, and it just means that you can use this more often. And again, it does, it's how you build meter a lot with both builds, so it's nice to have that. And again, you have another synergy option for grind chain rather than just Howl, which is pretty cool. And that's all the class changes. And here are some notable bug fixes. There's a few that are pretty cool in here. Fixed a bug where if you had a secret dungeon map in your pet inventory and someone queued requiring a map, it would say that you didn't have one. So sometimes you had to tell them, hey, take it out of your pet inventory, but now this is fixed. So it treats your pet inventory as your inventory for that, which is cool. Fixed another timer issue with Adventure Island. So the time hopefully is right again. Maybe, hopefully. And that's the patch notes. Let me know what you guys think. What's your favorite part? This is a huge update. We get a Legion raid. We get a new advanced class. We get a new Guardian raid. We get new world bosses. The South Vern area is opened up, which means we get new maps. We get new chaos gates. We get new secret maps. We get a new chaos line. We get new chaos dungeons that you can use for more loot. We get a bunch of new skins. It's a lot of good stuff. What's your favorite? Are you excited for any of these? I know I definitely am for several of these. I'll be picking these up myself. And then we'll see what's in the wardrobe. We're still kind of on the fence on what we're going to get, other than this, like the only image they've shown us. And usually the wardrobe has a bunch of stuff in it. So I guess we'll see tomorrow. But that was it. Let me know what your favorite part of the patch is. And good luck, good grind. I'll see you guys in the patch. If you enjoyed yourself today, leave a like down below. You can support me and my work on Patreon and view Patreon exclusive content. Link in the description. Thank you so much for tuning in, and I'll see you in the next one.